right, welcome to the Mind of Dave. I'm your host, Dr. Dave, and today we have our guest, Andy Schoonover, with Crowdhealth. And a little bit about Andy. He's been in the healthcare field for over 20 years. He started his first business and actually had an exit way back in the day, then got into some private investment fund things, and then had a really crappy experience, which drove him, as most entrepreneurs, drove him to create a solution for himself. And I'm super excited to get into that as we go along. But fun fact, he hasn't had insurance. He hasn't had health insurance for over 2 years and has saved over $10,000 on his own health insurance bills. So this is really relevant to everyone. I'm super excited to bring Andy on, and let's talk about this healthcare thing. But before we get going, what's your favorite food or drink, and what's a good story behind that connection?
Yeah, I mean, as you asked that, I don't know if it's my favorite drink, but my favorite drink I have ever drunk, if that's the right terminology.
drink, yeah.
Drink, drunk. My wife, my girlfriend at the time, had an incredible glass of Prosecco, of all things, in Italy, and Cinque Terre, sitting up on this cliff overlooking the ocean. And it's, to this day, it was the day I remember, I'm like, this woman's going to be my wife. And wow. So, and I tell her that, and she's like, what was it about that moment? I was like, I don't know what it was. It was just the universe, God, whatever you consider, was just telling me in that moment. I was like, I knew at that moment that I was going to ask you to marry me. So, pretty special glass of Prosecco. And I don't typically have Prosecco. She does, but not me. But that for sure was my favorite beverage to date. Nice. So,
and maybe it was the sharing of the experience of that
maybe.
Just melted your neurochemistry into one another and made that decision.
There you go. That was 9 years ago, and all is well. So, it was a good glass of Prosecco for sure.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so 9 years ago, so that would have been actually probably around the time of your exit of your company, correct? Let's dive into that. What got you into healthcare, and what causes you to do this constant entrepreneurship aspect to solve problems for people?
Yeah, sometimes I ask myself that myself. It's like, I'm like, right. Man, this is hard stuff. I mean, starting a company is not for the faint of heart. It is an uphill battle. It's hard. It's so fun though when it goes the way that you think it's going to go. But yeah, I mean, I started back, kind of a little bit of a backstory. I was out at business school at Stanford, and it was a crazy time out there. It was 2004, which was very similar to kind of 2018, 19, and 20. I mean, just tech boom, things were going great. Stock market was going up, and so the expectation for people coming out of Stanford was that you're going to go work for a tech company. And in fact, Facebook was moving from Boston to Silicon Valley, and you may have seen the movie The Social Network, but there was a subplot in that movie where Eduardo had to go get 16 or 18 grand from his dad to rent this house in Silicon Valley so that they could move from Boston. Well, that was my house, funny enough. And so Zuckerberg actually, handed my roommate a check for, I can't remember what it was, 16 or 18 grand to rent our house from us for the summertime. And it was just one of those weird experiences. And I actually came back from the summer, and there was, Facebook business plans all over the place. There was actually a hotel receipt from the Ritz-Carlton in New York with Mark Zuckerberg's name on it. And so, I picked it out of the trash. I brought it into class, and I showed it to a guy who had worked at Excel, and Excel Ventures was the first institutional investor in Facebook, and I showed him this thing. I was like, can you believe what they're spending your money on? And he's like, dude, it's going to be fine. He's like, he knew it that, even back in 2000, I think it was 2004, 2005, that Facebook was going to be huge. But back then, I think it was like at six schools, you had to have a .edu email address, and so it was in that period of time but I was like, man, I don't feel like Facebook or Google was what I'm called to do. And so I raised some money to go buy a company, and so we bought a little company in, of all places, Dayton, Ohio. That was, and all my classmates, all my classmates were like, man, you're going to Dayton, Ohio from Silicon Valley? And but anyway, did that, bought this little company, and it was, of all things, an I fall and I can't get up company, which I'm sure you've seen the commercials. You know, This old lady, I fall and I can't get up. Right? It looks like the commercial was made in 1986.
And still is probably airing somewhere.
It's still airing. Almost 20 years later. And so we bought this little company, and I went into the company, and this is kind of the problem solver in me. And our average customer was 80, something like 82 or 83 years old, and they had 2.5 comorbidities, so they were not well. And we were engaging with them after they had fallen on the floor, right? So they press their button after they fall on the floor, and so we started thinking about, like, how do we get engaged with these folks before they fall on the floor? How do we keep them from falling on the floor? And so what we did was stuck a Bluetooth module and some gyrometers and things in that little button that they have, so that we could both take a look at what their weight was and blood sugar and glucose levels and pulse and oxygen levels through Bluetooth to some of these Bluetooth devices, but also through this gyrometer, you can figure out, like, are they off balance? Are they getting up off the bed and then sitting back down on the bed when they get up in the morning, which means that there's some balance issues there. And so we actually took a proactive approach to that, and that's where the company really took off. So we ended up selling primarily to health plans, Medicare Advantage plans. Kind of funny where I am today. Like, I'm totally anti-health plan, but I was selling into health plans.
But it's because of that experience that you had to have an understanding, and that's where the disruption usually comes from.
Yeah. So it sort of turned out great. We sold the company 7 years later. We went from a couple dozen employees to somewhere between 300 and 400 employees in 7 years. I mean, it was just a crazy, fun thing.
Well, and it's during the digital health revolution. Everything was new and shiny from a sensor standpoint at that point.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, interesting. Okay. And then, so now let's loop forward into that disruptive aspect. And since you mentioned it, is now you're on a mission to disrupt that whole industry of insurance. So I love the story of your child's ear infection. So let's dive right into that, fast forward, and tell us the story of your experience and why you're doing what you're doing now.
Yeah, sure. So my after I left that company, I transitioned out over a couple of years. And as such, I didn't have health insurance because most of us, about 50% of us, get health insurance through our employer. So I didn't have health insurance. So I had to go to healthcare.gov and get a plan for me. My wife, 2 girls, was like $1,200 a month. And I joke, it worked until we had to use it. Our little one, who was 1 at the time, was having recurring ear infections. So we went to the ear, nose, and throat doctor, who said she had a perforated eardrum. So she had to get tubes in her ears. So great, fine. Go to the local hospital, get tubes in her ears. It was about a 15-minute procedure. And it was $8,000 when we got the bill. And I'm like, $8,000 for 15 minutes? Like, this is crazy. But this is why we have health insurance. Like, this is the whole point. And so we thought the health insurance plan was going to pay for it. Well, we got a note a few weeks later that said it was medically unnecessary, so they weren't going to pay for it. And so I went through 2 sets of dispute resolution, and even though my ear, nose, and throat doctor delayed his vacation by a day to do this because he was so worried about her long-term hearing loss, the health plan refused to pay for it. So I had to stroke an $8,000 check to the local hospital. I was like, man, I don't understand how this works. Like, how can you clearly something medically necessary? And I know it's medically necessary because her ear infection stopped as soon as we got tubes in her ear. So clearly it was effective.
Cause effect,
yeah. And so, I didn't understand it. So I called the health insurance plan. I said I quit. And so that was, several years ago. I think I'm up on 2.5 or 3 years now, something like that.
Okay.
We haven't had health insurance.
Yeah,
and
join
it's
the
been
club.
great.
We're at 10 years for our family.
Oh, awesome! Well, welcome.
Yeah.
I guess you should say it's welcome to me. I'm the newbie in this.
Well, it's all part of the fun journey that we all have to. We all go on one side, and then now we're on the other side because we saw the one side.
Yeah. So I just started thinking about, like, what do I need as a family of four to manage this system without having health insurance, and found some tools, built some tools. The culmination of that was putting together a company, because I was like, I think there's other people out there that would appreciate this set of tools. And the more people we can get to do this, the more effective these tools can be. And so I started Crowdhealth in April of last year, so we're a little over a year and a half, and we have now thousands of people who have signed up for Crowdhealth, and all of them want to escape the kind of the shackles of health insurance and take their health away from health insurance companies and back to them and their doctors making healthcare choices. So it's been just a fun journey, and we'll see where the journey takes us, but it's been great so far.
I've got, there's going to be a lot of minds really blown right now in thinking about this. And what you and I have casually just talked about is a really big shift in a lot of people's minds. And when I tell people that I haven't had health insurance for a very long time, their first question is, well, what about cancer? What about the heart attack? What about And so what is your response to that, typically, of the fear that people have around health insurance, and why are they so tied into it when they don't even know anything about it?
Yeah, well, the fear is ultimately connected to the dollar amount, right? And so what I explained to them is that health insurance plans don't actually negotiate on your behalf, or at least they don't negotiate very well, because they're actually incentivized for you to be sick. They actually make more money when you are sick than if you are healthy. And we can go into that if you'd like, but what I'm saying is if you go to the hospital and we just had a NICU baby, and I think she's going to be $250,000, which is a lot of money, clearly, like to anybody.
Yep.
So what happens in that case? Well, the hospital then has a decision to make. Given that family is uninsured, that hospital is going to negotiate with that family to get to a price that family can actually pay. And so that $250,000, I don't know, probably be $50,000 or something like that, $50,000.
Yeah.
And so what we then do is we say, okay, well, we've got thousands of people in Crowdhealth, and we're gonna ask them for a few bucks to help this family out with their $50,000 bill. And we have about 3,000 members currently, and so 3,000 members into 50 is say $17 or something like that, if I did the math right. To help this one family with a huge issue, like a huge monster bill. And so it's very easily done. We've had a NICU baby, we've had colon cancer, we've had cervical cancer, and we've taken care of, or helped that family take care of those pretty catastrophic life events. And that's what I explain to people is this is very reasonable. You're not going to get stuck with $1 million bill, because we're going to negotiate it on your behalf. And the hospital has every incentive in the world to negotiate it. Not only that, but there's actually a law that says, it's UCC 2-305, that says if you do not give somebody a price before you provide them a service, you have to negotiate in good faith afterwards. So if you go to the hospital and you have a NICU baby, and let's just say that baby was in the hospital for 30 days and it's $1 million bill, well, that hospital has to negotiate in good faith, and so we actually have a team of attorneys on our side that help you negotiate. It's part of our service. And that hospital, 99 times out of 100 will negotiate with you, and that one time they don't, we have attorneys who will, literally take them to court because what they're doing is illegal. So we're introducing consumerism into healthcare, and then ultimately that's what we think is going to bend that cost curve down and really drive down prices. So we're getting we're getting our members 70 for bills over $1,000. we're getting 74% better pricing than health plans. And so that just shows you there's a huge inefficiency in this market created by a health insurance plan, sticking themselves in between you and the doctor. So that was a long-winded way of saying you can negotiate. You're going to negotiate that bill. They will never charge you $1 million. And if they try to, if you're a member of Crowdhealth, we will legally, represent you to help you get that bill down.
Well, and I think it's such an important topic to bring up and bring light to because in my career as a doctor and dealing with patients, I ran on a sports medicine clinic, and I would see patients that were uninsured, and they would come to me with these huge, expensive bills, and they wanted to do the right thing. They thought that they had no negotiating power. They would just want to pay the whole thing, and they had no idea that there's three middlemen of healthcare. There's pharmaceutical industry, there's insurance industry, and there's hospital administration. And most people don't understand that you can actually take those three people out of the equation, and you can pay, direct bills and things like that. And so bringing awareness to this through a platform like yours is so critical.
I'll add fourth, which is brokers.
Oh, yeah, there you go. Yep.
And the primary reason to have brokers is what you're buying is so complex that you need somebody to help you walk through it. And so what we're trying to do is this is so easy. It's truly a direct-to-consumer play. It's as easy as, signing up for, iTunes or whatever. Right?
Yeah.
It's very, very simple. Simple to understand.
And I think it's timely because, 10 years ago when I was in my clinic, people had no idea that they could actually advocate for themselves. They didn't know about natural alternatives. They didn't know about, all the different options out there. Now doctors, as whether they're holistic or regular medical doctors or osteopaths, people are breaking away from the systems. And so I think this is perfect timing to get this conversation going for patients can now take care of their own health in the direction that they feel comfortable for themselves, whereas 10 years ago, it was the doctor said this, and this is the only way to do it kind of thing.
Yeah. We love some of those alternative, medicine choices. I think there are, I think the problem that docs have, and you're a doc, you can opine on this, but the reimbursement rates for docs now, especially kind of in the primary care space, are just so low, they can only spend 6 or 7 minutes with you. And they have to get through, 100 people a day or whatever it is to make any money. And once they get through with that, they don't have enough time to actually keep up to date on what's going on in the world of medicine, the world of research and development, and new research is coming out to tell you that X, Y, Z means ABC, right? Like they don't have any time to do that, and so oftentimes you as an individual might have better information than the doctor because of new research article just came out and it says X, Y, and Z. A lot of these primary care docs just go to, American College of Cardiology or American Heart Association for the all heart stuff and say, oh, this is what they say, and so this is what I believe, as opposed to going and doing the research to really truly understand what's going on. And so I tell people, you got to be the CEO of your own health. Get in the driver's seat. Don't be in the passenger seat in your own health. Your docs, we love docs. They 100% advocate for docs, but it's literally, it's impossible for them to know everything that's going on out there. And so do your work, go in, show them what you found and see what they say. And maybe they agree with you and maybe they disagree with you, but be the CEO of your own health.
Yeah. One of the big takeaways I had, one of my patients was actually one of the head physicians at the UW system, the UW Medical, and he was in charge of educating physicians on that there is a 17-year lag on average of medical information being passed down to the new generation of doctors. Because if you think about it, when a young student comes out of school and they do their residency, they're learning from a doctor that is on average 17 to 25 years in the business already, that hasn't been keeping up on their up-to-date knowledge as much as they can. Almost 4,000 research articles get published every day. It's impossible to keep up with this stuff. And so you've got this layered effect, and once you have that as an awareness, it gives you, the consumer, the permission to ask a question. Like, stand up for yourself and say, is this the current thing? Like, very common in ACL replacements and things of that nature. There's so many different ways to do things now. You have every right to challenge that surgeon and not just go with the first surgeon. If you wanted a different surgery because you did your own research and you looked at hamstring tendon versus patellar tendon graft, like, these are the questions that you can start to ask yourself and find on Dr. Google, which is an amazing invention.
Yeah. Yeah, that's really good. I mean, I think that, so I had labs recently done. I tweeted a little bit about this, and, you know, and what I found was, and I haven't done labs in a long time. I'm 43. I didn't feel the need to do labs, but with Crowdhealth, I could get a full, 10 different lab tests. I mean, it was everything from liver, kidney, thyroid, metabolic panel, comprehensive metabolic panel, lipids, everything. And so I got back, and I have sky-high LDL. And so, the theory kind of widespread in medicine is LDL equals, arterial wall, calcification, oxidization, things like whatever it is, and that leads to heart attacks. And, what I've actually kind of done some research and found that is being questioned right now by some new studies. And, because I first went to my primary care physician who's like, you got to get, on this, what is it, cervical or whatever? What is my
immediate statins.
Statins. You got to stop eating meat. You got to stop eating this. Stop eating this. I'm like, man, that sounds miserable. I'm a very heavy animal protein eater, and I couldn't imagine taking out animal protein out of my diet. So I started doing some work, and I'm kind of like, I'm gonna just go kind of hard on this kind of keto diet for a while. I'm going to see if I can get these levels down myself. Plus, I'm not 100% convinced that the high LDL is actually going to lead to heart attacks, because that's just not what the data says. But I tell that story because it's like, do the research, do the work. It's your own health. Like, it's arguably the most important thing in your life is your health, and so you should be willing to do some more work on this, and not just sit in the driver's seat and let the insurance company or even a doctor, with all due respect, doc, be the driver. Like, you need to be the driver, and you need doctors that'll sit alongside you to help you with that. But that's what I tell people over and over again: is you got to be the driver of your own health. You be the CEO. Looping
it back, I mean, doctors just aren't what they used to. It's not like the doctor knows your whole family. They don't know your stress levels. They don't know who you are as a person. They don't know what drives you. And you can't rely on, and not to mention they have zero training in nutrition and lifestyle and all of those sorts of things. Most doctors that say that they do have that is all self-taught. From a curriculum standpoint, they have very basic chemistry, nutrition. And so it's impossible for them to even, they would love to, they're just not in a system that allows that. And so you as the patient really have to take over this is why I'm excited that the digital health era is coming, because now we can sensor up, we can track ourselves, we can look at our sleep, we can look at all of the things that actually make a real impact in our health, and then take that to the doctor and say, I agree with you on that, maybe, but I'm going to go do my own thing for a little bit.
I was watching real quick. Sorry for interrupting. I was watching Z-Dog MD. You know Z-Dog? Yeah. And he had this guy on who is, I think he was a primary care doc or internal medicine or something, and he was taking his boards. I don't know how y'all docs work, but like you have to take boards or something. And he had this big binder full of like, this is what I have to study. And then he went to 3 pages, and he said, and here's the only 3 times in this entire binder on internal medicine, I think it was internal medicine, that it talks about lifestyle. It was like 3 sentences within, it would look like a several 100-page binder on lifestyle. And to think that, you're like, lifestyle, from what I've heard is 80% of chronic conditions are preventable by lifestyle choices. And so if we start doing the right things in our 30s, 40s, and 50s, I think we're going to bend the cost curve in our 60s, 70s, and 80s because we will not will knock out a lot of these chronic conditions. I believe.
Yep.
And so, we've got a group of people at Crowdhealth, man. It blows me away, like hearing the stories every day, like people being like, I want to do something for my health, even though I'm 30 years old, so that when I'm 70 or 80 or 90, right, that I'm able to play with my grandkids in the backyard and I can live an active lifestyle. And I know that I got to make better choices here. And so it's this low time preference approach to life that is, I know, substantial within kind of like the Bitcoin community, which is something else we can talk about. But it's like making this hard decisions now for 30 or 40 or 50 years from now, right? And those are the choices that we can make if we're responsible ultimately for our own health care. So that's what we're trying to promote within Crowdhealth.
Well, and I think that even loops back to your original company. It's never too late to start. Like today is the day. It doesn't matter what age you are, you can make a positive health span improvement. Not necessarily a lifespan improvement, but you can definitely make a health span improvement, and the action can start today, and that's so hopeful for a lot of people.
Yeah, totally.
Well, let's get into the Bitcoin since you brought it up, and I know that there's a key piece of your company surrounding this, and decentralization and power to the people, and all the good stuff that Bitcoin can bring us. What is your philosophy? Where are we in today's market of where do you see this blend of decentralization and healthcare coming together?
Yeah, well, we're interesting. I don't know when this is going to air, but today we're getting word that the auditors of Binance are stepping aside, and so FTX just went down. So we've got billions, tens of billions of dollars disappearing into the ether, to use that term. And
it's not going to patient healthcare.
It's not going to patient healthcare. It's not going to patient healthcare. And so I'm a huge fan of Bitcoin. I'm borderline Bitcoin maximalist. I think that Bitcoin is the only one that's going to ultimately survive. And I do think it is an incredible way to combat what our government is doing, which is just printing money over and over and over and over again. And here we again sit at, I think, 7.2 or 3% inflation or something like that, which I don't think anybody outside of the government truly believes. I think we're probably closer to 10 or 12% because the CPI, I mean, I'm sure you can have guests on who are perfect at CPI, knowledge, but it's a terrible way to manage, to track inflation. And so, what we are saying is that we've got this chronic inflation within healthcare already. I mean, it started in the 1970s. It's been happening for the last 15 years. It's something like 4 or 5x inflation. And so we have this chronic inflation in healthcare that's, I think, created primarily through governmental intervention. But you add to that a monetary supply based inflation, which we're seeing right now, and we're just seeing a juicing of premiums for 2023. I mean, I've talked to many people who are seeing 50% increases in their premiums next year, and so the way that we're looking at this is saying if you can, in insurance plans, ultimately what happens is you send a premium into an insurance plan. They hold it in this big bucket, this big pot of dollars. It's melting over time, and therefore they have to increase, rates just to keep parity. And so what we're saying is instead of holding it in this big pot, that's the insurance plan owns that pot. Why don't you have an account? It's your account, and you can use that money in that account however you want. You can put it in Bitcoin. Right, and so in essence, what we have is a decentralized group of people, each with a little bit of money in their account that acts not too dissimilar from an insurance plan that has this big pot. Right. I mean, the risk profile is different. I mean, with Crowdhealth, you ultimately are responsible for your own bill. In the insurance situation, the insurance company is responsible for their own bill. So there's differences there. But for Crowdhealth, every month you put money into an account. It's your account. We take our subscription fee out of that. but that account then accumulates in value. You can take a piece of that and you can put it in Bitcoin. We're going to allow you to invest it in other things here in the next 30 or 60 days, which we're excited to talk about at some other point. But so instead of the insurance company getting all the interest and profit off of that money, you are getting it, which is the person who should be getting it.
Right.
And the cool part about this is, like, it's your account, it's your money. So if you walk away from Crowdhealth tomorrow, you take that money with you. It's yours, as opposed to it goes into the black hole of health insurance world. So that is a totally different way of thinking about it. It's actually more of a kind of a crowdfunding approach to healthcare as opposed to an insurance approach to healthcare. Yeah. Because each person is responsible for their own money in that account. You can use that money to help other people in the community, and we can talk about how the mechanics of that all work, but it is a totally different way of thinking about this than health insurance, and we think way more effective.
Yeah, totally. And it's true at its root principle, it is a true investment into your health. Because it's a financial investment. It's an investment into your health. It's all of the things that we would expect. This is the beauty of Bitcoin, and this is the beauty of, just the whole concept that you guys are doing. Making your own money. A lot of people don't realize when you put money into a bank or when you put money into a health insurance plan, they make money off of your money. And that's all part of the game. And now you can make money off of your money and still be able to afford your health and still get the quality care that you want. And you can choose what you want. Very exciting stuff.
And you're in a community of people who care about their health.
Yeah.
And so our average customer is like 34. The last time I checked, their BMI was 4 or 5 points below the national average. And so we're not getting a lot of the cancers. We've had a few, but we're getting more active injuries, pregnancies, things like that aren't necessarily more expensive. The ones you worry about are the big cancer cases, heart cases, those types of things. But we are a lot of pregnancies, active injuries, and not a ton of illnesses. So you're in a group of people who care about their health, or just because a lot of them are Bitcoiners. I think half of our population or something like that are Bitcoiners now. I might be a little bit off, but it's around there. They're curious about, the world and their health, and they're making decisions that I do think are focused on more 20, 30, 40 years from now than they are today. And those are the type of people you want to be hanging out with, especially if they're going to help you pay for your health care.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think this community side of it is brilliant. It's what I see as the future of, what social media was intended but didn't turn out to be. We are community-based people. If you look at the CrossFit culture, if you look at really any kind of culture of community, is there's a million people that you can share your Crowdhealth with, and there's a pressure instinctively in human nature to try to be your best for your community. Yes. And that's why I love this concept so much. That's why I love Bitcoin so much. I love, the whole decentralized aspect is you can find your tribe of people, you can raise your hand, and you can say, I'm going to go be part of this, and then everyone's going to support me in every single way because we know we all benefit from it.
Yeah, just that word tribe, right? That comes from, clearly we have modern day literal tribes in parts of our world, but it comes back from a day where we were all part of tribes, and in those tribes we helped each other. If somebody got hurt or injured, the other people in the community gathered around them and helped them. And so we think that community aspect is a really important thing to do. And in fact, when somebody gets hurt, we had this woman in Tennessee. She's 19 and she got into a boating accident and lost 4 of her fingers. And the bill was tens of thousands of dollars. And so, her family paid the first $500, and then we went to the community and we said, would you all kick in $100 each from that account that we set up from you, not additionally, but from that account? Would you give that woman $100 to help her because she just lost her 4 fingers? And so if you say yes, then money goes from your account to her account, and we crowdfunded that. I don't know what the bill was. It was it was $20,000, $30,000, $40,000, something like that. We crowdfunded that in 3 days, and we actually had people. We asked for $100, and they wanted to give more to this woman. right?
Wow.
Because they're like, wow, like I couldn't imagine if I was 19 and lost basically, my entire hand, almost.
Yep.
And so there was this community part of it. It was like, you would never in a million years call your health insurance plan and be like, I want to give you more money, right? Like,
right,
never.
yeah.
So it becomes more of a human interaction as opposed to, a company interaction. And so there's different behaviors that happen when I'm dealing with Dr. Dave as opposed to me dealing with an insurance company who's then dealing with Dr. Dave, right? It's just there is a different dynamic there. We had another woman who had a man who had colon cancer, and his wife calls us and says he's got colon cancer. This is the craziest thing that clearly has ever happened in our lives. Will you walk through this with us, because we want to make sure that we're actually negotiating correctly and we're getting good doctors who are going to take care of him, but we don't want to screw the crowd. Like, we don't want to screw the community. And so, like, you're like, these people actually care about, the other people in their community, because if they were with an insurance company, they would be like, I want to extract as much value out of this as possible, because everybody thinks their insurance company is screwing them. So, when you do need it, you try to take out as much as you can, which creates this death spiral. And so, it's incredible what the community kind of component of this does to behavior. And behavior is a big component of healthcare costs.
Well, you're creating the positive spiral instead of the negative spiral.
Yeah, exactly.
That 19-year-old and all of these people involved with her case in particular, they're going to be lifelong there. They're going to want to see her go be productive and get a job and start a family and all of those sorts of things. That's such a beautiful story. Thank you for sharing.
We had a miscarriage about a month ago too. The same thing happened. Like, people especially if you've experienced miscarriage, like, the heaviness of that. My family, my wife and I, our first daughter actually passed away 10 hours after she was born. And so, like, you feel that with other families. Like, I know what you're going through right now. And so, we had people step up and be like, I'm going to give twice as much to that family as what you asked for, because I know what that feels like.
Wow.
And it's like, let's put some humanity back into healthcare, right?
Yes.
Let's put some love your neighbor back into healthcare. And I think there's a really powerful component of that can change the way that we buy healthcare, at least that we think so.
Right. Yeah, well, I think you're onto something. I think it's something magical and special for sure. It's what can you, besides your company, what can individuals do to start to make strides towards creating that community for themselves? Yeah,
I mean, geez. The first thing that comes to mind is get off of social media. I think that from my perspective, where I'm just going to say personally, where I feel like I tend to shut in and shut out community, and oftentimes it's my kids or my wife or whatever. It's, we get stuck in these electronic devices. Like, let's throw away the electronic devices and start, getting out and riding bikes and meeting our neighbors and being outside, enjoying. I'm in Austin, so I have awesome weather most of the time, except for August. Enjoying the weather and being out there in community, and so let's rely upon community being a face-to-face thing as opposed to an electronic thing. Even with work, right? We don't have community at work anymore for a lot of us, because we're talk over Zoom as opposed to sitting down next to each other. And so I think there's going to be a long-term impact on society as we pull out of communities electronically primarily and get off the streets of our communities and riding bikes and playing basketball and stuff that we did as kids, right? And so I think there's going to be a pretty significant impact societally. It'll be interesting to see how the sociologists or whatever 20, 30 years look back and be like, wow, like there's something that happened in the 2020s, and it probably COVID exacerbated it, that we are going to be disconnected from each other in a way that's going to have massive societal effects. That's my gut. And so we're trying to make a little step in that and say, for your healthcare, like, let's get community back together as opposed to pulling community apart. And I think on the Bitcoin side, like Bitcoiners, interestingly, have this concept of a sovereign individual,
right?
Which ultimately means I'm responsible for myself. But the interesting thing about the Bitcoin community is I don't know if I've ever seen a community that is like as tightly knit as the Bitcoin community. It is a tribe. I mean, it is a tribe of people who will, go to battle for each other as long as you're, Bitcoin only. So, it's kind of interesting in that way. But yeah, we need to get back to community in this country.
Nice. Yeah. Very cool. Okay. What other stories do you have to share for us as a kind of wrapping up here? What are some of the inspirational other stories that you've had experience with on your platform, and really just like maybe even some from the doctor side of it, if doctors are interested in getting onto Crowdhealth, what has this been doing holistically for the community that way?
Yeah, I mean, I think that people kind of look at what we do and they say, oh wow, you're getting pricing that's way better than health plans. Are these doctors going to be able to survive? Are they, going to be able to take rates that are 30, 40, 50% less or more than what they're getting paid by the health insurance companies? And I think doctors and nurses or medical professionals, I think is how we categorize them. They're either the second or the third largest group of people within Crowdhealth right now. And some of our biggest advocates are doctors. And the reason why is because we're treating them like human beings, whereas I feel like the insurance plans, treat them, just like a barcode in many ways.
Yes.
And so you've got these very highly trained, very capable people that we have an incredible amount of respect for that it feels like the insurance plans don't have respect for. We have respect for them in terms of paying them fairly. We have respect for them in terms of we trust them, them and their patients to make the right decisions. Like, we don't be like, no, you can't, that's rejected or that's declined or anything like that. It's like, look, you're the doctor, you're the patient, you all make a decision what's right between the two of you. And I think that respect is really important, such that so many doctors have come back to us and are actually members of Crowdhealth. And in fact, that Tennessee story I just told, that woman's primary care doc heard about Crowdhealth and the way that we treated her and actually signed up for Crowdhealth. So,
oh, wow.
That was a cool kind of, extension of that story. And the doctors love us so much, one, because we treat them with respect and let them make the decisions. Doctors typically have to go to insurance plans and say, can I do this for my patient? It's called a pre-authorization. And so we're like, no pre-auths, you do what's right for your patient. But they also don't have to deal with health insurance companies to get paid. And so oftentimes these docs spend 30% or more of revenue just to get paid by the health insurance company. So they have, this staff of billing people sitting back here trying to get paid, and it gets rejected, and the doctor has to call the billing health insurance company and explain, and it's just, you can tell me you're a doc, but most of the docs that I've come across is like, I'm in this to take care of the patient, not to deal with health insurance companies. And so, our patients go and they pay on the day of service. They get paid immediately. It's in cash or a credit card or whatever. And so they don't have to deal with that, waiting 60 or 90 days to get paid. They don't have to worry about the billing of insurance companies. You actually get paid in cash. Like almost every other, profession in the planet, you pay me directly, as opposed to having to go through a third party. And so it's cool to see the doctor community, rally around us. And in fact, as we talked about before starting this, we have an advisory board, a medical advisory board of docs. It's about 20 docs. It's from, most of the major specialties who, are doing this, to help us free of charge because we need some help. Like, we need docs who know what they're talking about to help us think through some of these things. And that's just evidence to say, like, these docs want to change the way that healthcare is being delivered, and they don't want to spend, what I've heard is average about 30% of their time dealing with administrative stuff. They want to focus on the patient. And so we're enabling them to do that. So that's a really cool component of what we're doing. If you have the docs on board, if you got the payment structure right, the hospitals don't love us because we try to take people out of the hospitals and put them in surgery centers and things like that. Insurance companies don't like us at all because we're trying to, take them down. But say, look, if we can get to some scale, I think we've got a model here that can significantly change the way that we pay for healthcare and really, truly bend that cost curve down substantially.
Yeah, very nice. I'm a believer. I in my sports medicine journey, I went all cash because of everything that you were describing. Insurance companies didn't like me because I was doing too much exercise rehab for people because I gave them the complete care. And they said, you're not allowed to do that. And I said, screw you. So it was a forced thing. And there's just so much dissatisfaction when you have patients who don't understand insurance and the insurance coming back and denying, and then they blame the doctor, and the doctor's like, no, I'm just doing what I'm doing because I know that that's the best for you, and they have no clue. And so I really think that the future of healthcare is if you can link up with the doctor directly, it's a much better world, and I really love the community aspect coming.
I can imagine, if you're like really good at your job, like these doctors, the vast majority of them are, like the last thing that you want is a little parrot sitting on your shoulder telling you what to do, right? It's like, look, I've been trained, I've done my residency, I've done all this stuff. Like I know what I'm doing. Like health insurance plans, stop trying to dictate and micromanage me. Like nobody likes to be micromanaged, and doctors especially. And so we're in this period of time now where we're seeing the doctor burnout, primarily post-COVID. But I think that the insurance plan and administrative responsibilities is always one or two on the list of reasons why doctors are getting burned out. And so, we have a serious problem here if all of our doctors get burned out and quit. So let's alleviate them from some of the burden, the administrative burden, and let's focus them on, which, by the way, they're not very good at. Like, that's not what the skills God gave them. It's like y'all are good at, like, taking care of patients and understanding their problems and helping them, getting them resolved, not health insurance plans, not all this kind of other stuff. And so let's let you utilize the skills God has given you more effectively. And I think you can flourish as a result of that. I think the entire system can flourish as a result of that. So that's what we're really pushing for.
If we could get rid of the craziness of medical notes that doctors have to take to justify insurance claims. That's really all it is. And whereas like a doctor note literally could probably be a 2-sentence thing of what we're doing, and because of insurance companies, they would have to turn into a 3-page report just to justify so that person doesn't have to pay for the claim. Crazy stuff. All right, well, what are some last parting words? What are some action steps today that people can take? What bit of advice, other than just ditch your technology, what is like a daily habit thing that someone can take in their life to make a big impact?
Yeah, man, I think that the physical component is at least partially and I would say substantially impacted by the psychological component. And so, what I do, as CEO of a startup is, there's an hour of my day where I'm focusing on me and focusing on my psychological well-being. It's the first hour of my day. I get up at 5 a.m. every morning, 5 to 6 is about me. And you can do whatever your kind of leaning is, if that's meditation, if that's journaling, if that's prayer, if that's whatever it may be. I'm like, man, make that a priority in life, because I think that sets the stage for a really healthy day. And so that to me is the first hour of my day. The second hour of my day is exercise. And then, that I can kind of take care of my family and my kids and all that kind of stuff and get them off to school and then get to work. So, that's how I start my day. And I always say, like, man, start your day right, and that sets the tone for your entire day. So there got to be things like that in your life that you've kind of figured out over the years that, like, get your day started well. scrolling your phone or whatever is not the right
Yep.
way of doing it from my perspective. But yeah, that's the way. That was my one, is just be disciplined in starting your day well.
Awesome, Andy. Well, thank you so much for your time. What's the best way to have people find the company?
Yeah, joincrowdhealth.com is our website. You can see us there. We're all on all the major social media platforms. At Join Crowd Health is our handle, so we'd love for you to join us. And
Perfect.
We're pretty sassy about what's going on in the healthcare space, so it's a pretty entertaining on our social media platforms, but not between 5 and 6 a.m. in the morning. We do not suggest you to go and join at that time.
Got it. Well, thank you very much. The links will be in the show notes on the website, Mind of Dave. And I highly encourage everyone to take this right now, this opportunity for your family to check this out. Even if you're paying for health insurance, this is a great additive thing, because you never know what's going to happen to your health. You never know what the future may hold. The tomorrow aspects can be completely different than the today aspects. So go check this out and get started right now. Those links will be in the show notes. Andy, thank you very much for your time, and let's change the world together.
Thanks so much.